Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I'm a Colombo Australian woman living in Melbourne, passionate about books and everything bookish. Welcome to day number 8 of Bookmas. Almost there, Christmas is almost here. Whee! Today's video is a little bit more of like a sentimental video. 11 books that have made me very emotional, that made me cry, because sometimes I want to pick up something that will make me feel all the feels. Sometimes I just want to pick a book that will make my heart shrink and will make me emotional, because I do like crying over books. It's something that doesn't happen that often, and if I cry, it's just like a little bit, but I actually want to cry my eyes out. And these are the books that have accomplished that recently. Number 11 is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. The story is about these teenagers who had cancer that met at the and their friendship evolves, and then they fall in love. They share hard moments because of course they are teenagers and they have cancer, and of course because of the whole premise, cancer, death, teenagers, a lot of like life ahead. It's very emotional at the end. And the movie is also very good, but of course the book, it's always better. In position number 10 we have All the Light That We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, and this is a book that I read many years ago, probably when it was released, and it takes place in France, in occupied France. It's around World War II, historical novel, and it's about a blind girl and a Nazi soldier, or someone who works for the Nazis, and their journey through that very difficult period. I cannot describe all the feelings that I felt when reading this book. At the ending, I was just bawling. Like, I remember that I was gasping for air because it was very emotional. It won many awards when it was published because it is a magnificent piece of art. In position number 9, a very similar one in terms of takes place in World War II, and is The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. I didn't have to read this book at school. I grew up in Colombia, so in my literature classes we never talk about or read about wars. I never had the chance to read it as a kid. I read it as an adult this last year, and I felt very sad, extremely sad, because they were so close to be liberated. Yeah, I felt empty. I felt guilty for complaining for trivial things when this 14-year-old little girl survived more than 2 years or 1.5 years in an attic, scared for her life. So it's a very emotional book, and I'm sure you know that. In position number 8 is a very well-known author, Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. Celeste Ng also wrote Little Fires Everywhere, and that was adapted by Reese Witherspoon. Everything I Never Told You is her first novel. It's about this Chinese family that live in the US. The kids were born in America, but the parents were born in China. So the kids have to learn to manage their culture, the cultural differences between those two countries, like China and America. And the book starts at the first page of the book. We know that one of the two kids, the girl, the daughter, she's dead. And so the book, it's just telling us how we got to that point. How did she, or why she committed suicide. It's brutal. In position number 7, we have one that is not so sad, but it just made me feel all the feelings. I cried, but I think I was more happy than sad while reading this book, and it's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this has been like a boom novel for the past 2 years. The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is all about Evelyn's life, and Evelyn had 7 husbands during her lifetime, and she has been a very private person in terms of her personal life. And now that she is old, she has decided to give one interview, and one interview only, to this young journalist about her life, and everyone wants to know who was the love of her life. Out of the 7 husbands, who was that love? that mark her forever. Throughout the book, we learn about the 7 marriages. She started as an actress and then she became like a Hollywood star, and the price that she had to pay for that. Very, very good novel. It's one of the best books I read last year. In number 6 is a book that I actually read probably 15 years ago. And it's called All Those Things We Never Said. And this book is by the French author Marc Levy. And I think this book marked my life because of what it is about. So it's about the relationship of a daughter and a father. And so the day that she's meant to get married, she learns 2 things. One, that their father died, and the second one, she opens the door and her father is there. I'm not gonna say anything else. So that, to spark your curiosity. It was a book about regrets, a book about second chances, a book about having problems, family issues, and getting to resolve those family issues before it's too late. In number 5, it's a book that I read this year. It's originally in Spanish and it's El Olvido que Seremos. In English, the title is Oblivion and it's by Hector Abad, and it's a memoir. So it's a memoir about more than his life, his father's life. His father was an activist in Colombia during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and he was murdered. And it's about his relationship with him and everything that he did and what he learned and the different dynamics within Colombia at the time. So I think the book tells the story from when he was born to when the dad died, but it focuses more in terms of the 70s and the 80s and how tough was living in Colombia, especially when you have a father that has raised his voice against corruption and against drugs. It's a very emotional ride, and because it's a memoir, it makes it even tougher. In position number 4, another book that I read this year, A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman, and I already talked about this in previous videos, so I'm gonna make it short. It's the story of a old grumpy guy who wants to die because he doesn't have a reason to live anymore. So he wants to die, and he tries and tries, and destiny doesn't want him to die so soon. And it is funny, it is witty, it's amazing, it's heartwarming, but that book made me feel everything. I was happy, I was sad, and I was extremely sad. And of course the ending, my eyes were so red, and then after that I watched the movie and I cried again because I was emotional again. In position number 3, we have The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. I didn't know she could write historical fiction. I thought that she could only write romance and normal novels, young adult novels, but no, she proved me wrong. This book takes place in America and it's a book about books, so thick. But it's about this group of women who start a horse riding book delivery. So they go around the farthest away from that little town, and it's like a library on the road, a library on horse, and they go and start educating or lending these books to the minorities, to Black people, but also at the same time each of the characters is going through their journeys. It's about women liberation, about women's rights, about segregation, race, women's having a voice, misogynism. It's very intense, but it's beautiful, and it's beautifully written. Now we are getting closer to the end of this list. The second book, it's The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is a book that I read very, very recently, and it was a book that surprised me. I wasn't expecting it to be that deep, that amazing, that wholesome. It looks like a middle grade because of the cover, but it's actually not a middle grade. I'm not gonna talk much about it. If you want to know more, just check my video of the best books that I read in 2020, because that made the list up the top. It is just beautiful, and at the end I was just so happy. Like, I cry, but also I cry also of happiness, or happy tears. Yeah, and I can't wait to read his second book called A Whisper Under the Door, something like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch yesterday's video. We have reached the top of the books that have made me cry and have made me feel many things. And it's not gonna come as a surprise. I think this is one of the most depressing, sad books ever written, and is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. A Little Life is one of those books that you either love it and it's the best that you have read in your life, or you hated it with your guts, and or you couldn't finish it, because it's a book where to one person every catastrophe, every sad thing that you can think of happens to that person, which is Jude. But basically this book is a group of friends, 4 friends, met at uni and they live in New York. But in reality, it's about Jude and his relationship with those 3 friends, the other 3 friends, and his life, and how life has treated him like shit. Oh, this has every trigger warning out there. This book has that, because from page 2 you start suffering, and to page 1,000, I think it's 1,000 pages or 900 pages, it's bloody long, but also it shows you the good side of humans, the power of friendship, the power of being a good person and collecting the good deeds. It's a book that I haven't reread it, because I remember that book made me so sad, and I was affected many months after that. I'm still, from time to time, every time that I think about it, it's like, oh shit, that ending. If you want to read a book that will drive you to a depression, to a deep depression and sad, but also like, you know that it's a great book. It is just amazing how a book written words that are fiction can make you feel so many things. Thank you so much for watching. Again, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'm doing Bookmas. We still have 2 videos to go. You can also follow me on socials and keep up to date what I'm reading at the moment. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon. Bye.